My name is Sean Patton. I'm a stand-up comedian.
A lot of people are under the impression that these past 2 years have been like a dream come true for those of us with OCD because we get to wash our hands a lot. Do you think we like washing our hands? Is that what you think? Do you think people like succumbing to their mental illness? Is that what you think? Do you think schizophrenics are like, oh boy, the voices are back. Can't wait to hear what they're up to.
I was waking up and into a panic attack. And I would spend all day in these panic attacks. And when you're having these anxiety attacks, when you're deep in the throes, I call it an OCD wormhole. I'd be like, man, I am in one right now.
Yeah.
And that's okay. And you just say to yourself, that's okay. It's okay to feel this way. It's okay to be freaked out. It's okay to be in this wormhole right now. You have a condition.
Yep.
It's okay. And immediately, like right now, as I'm saying it just as an example, you start to feel that calm come over you.
Yeah.
And the acceptance, because I think that's the biggest part of it. People want to cure it. It's not possible.
No.
Yet the acceptance is the cure.
If you've liked the things that you've seen on the Get to Know OCD podcast and you want to know more about OCD, you can go to NOCD.com. We have tons of education. You can go to our NOCD YouTube channel and watch our webinars and other episodes of the podcast. And we hope that you will take advantage of everything that we have available to you.
Hello, everyone, and welcome once again to another episode of the Get to Know OCD podcast. My name is Dr. Patrick McGrath. I'm the Chief Clinical Officer for NOCD. If you're looking for help for OCD or related conditions, check us out at NOCD.com. That's NOCD.com. And if you like the Get to Know OCD podcast, you can subscribe to the NOCD YouTube channel and see all of the episodes, plus my Wednesday night webinars and other interviews and just fun little educational drops that we do now and then. Today, we have someone who I am so excited to meet because I've been watching him on YouTube, so now I actually get to talk to him, which is so cool. Hello, Sean Patton. How are you today?
Hello, Patrick. Nice to meet you. Nice to be here. I'm well. It's a rainy Sunday here in Atlanta, and what better way to spend it?
And what better way to celebrate a time change as well? I mean, you couldn't think of a better way to do so.
Right.
Yeah.
Did it happen already?
Yeah, last night.
Oh, excellent. Good. I didn't have to do anything.
No. The beauty of automatic clocks, isn't it?
Love it. Yeah, just jumps ahead.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Sean, why don't you spend a few minutes just telling people who you are? And obviously you're on the Get to Know OCD podcast, so there's probably an assumption that there's some OCD in there along the way.
Oh, yeah. My name is Sean Patton. I'm a stand-up comedian, actor as well. You could see if you like watching TV, you can see me right now on The English Teacher on FX.
Cool.
And we're currently filming season 2 right now. So, which
Awesome.
is why I'm in Atlanta. And OCD comes in real handy when you're filming something and have to repeat things the multiple times on purpose. But yeah, I tour the country constantly, the world to some extent. You can find me online, but that's me. And
Fantastic.
I've had OCD my whole life. I mean, everyone I think who has it their whole life, obviously. But I think that's like part of the misconception of any sort of mental ailment is that you can like catch it, or develop it. And I'm sure you probably could develop certain things, but I feel like OCD is one of those. Like, nope, it's from the get-go. As far as in my experience, anyway.
How did you notice it growing up, and when did you finally get a label for it?
Well, that's growing up in Louisiana, in the 90s. I'm not gonna say it's the worst state to grow up with a mental ailment, but it's not. I don't think it's the best. Especially nowadays. But it's. I didn't really get a label or even learn what it was until I started having severe panic, like severe anxiety attacks, day-long anxiety attacks. Because, you grow up with it as a kid. I think the thing a lot of people with, obsessive compulsive disorder, you're terrified to talk about it.
Sure.
Especially back then because it's a lot of intrusive thought. It's for me, it was mostly intrusive thought. And it's intrusive thoughts you don't want to share.
Of course.
Because you're like, if I say any of this out loud, they're locking me up, and I won't. They don't even they won't even have to throw away the key. I'll be so fucking crazy, I won't even know there is a key to. It's like I was so terrified of ever saying any of these things out loud. So you just sort of, from when I was a kid, I can like some of my earliest memories are connected to like obsessive compulsive tics.
Yeah.
And like those little rituals you build for yourself. I can't remember a time without it.
Sure.
And it was when I was like a teenager when it started getting bad,
I'm so glad you said that already, because we have a community on our NOCD app, and one of the things I hear all the time is, I'm afraid that if I say this out loud, they'll throw me in jail. They'll hospitalize me for the rest of my life. Some people also say, I'm afraid to say it because then if it's not OCD, then it means I actually am this horrible, awful thing, and then it would confirm it, and I don't want that confirmation. So it can go that way too. Mm-hmm.
Right, especially when you start so here's a fun one. Here's a fun one, and this is getting highly personal, but whatever. When I was a kid, when I was a teenager, before that even, I was a bedwetter growing up, right?
Okay.
And it had a lot to do with the fact that I wasn't sleeping, and when I would finally fall asleep, I would fall into a deep, deep, unpenetrable sleep,
Mm-hmm.
And then finding out randomly, I think I was a seventh grader, that bedwetting was also a trait of some, not all, but of some serial killers.
Right.
And you start sort of aligning that with some of the thoughts that are going through your head. And then there becomes this idea that, like, when I was a kid, I was thinking this stuff. Like, am I a serial killer?
Yeah.
Am I a serial killer in a cocoon? You know what I mean? Like, one day I'm just going to bloom into a full-fledged murderer. And then, of course, you're thinking, I have younger siblings. I'm the oldest, right? So then, of course, you're like terrified because you're looking over, my brother, for example, is 14 years younger than me, right? So, my parents were bad with timing. I can say this, him and I were both mistakes, right? I'm the oldest. So, it was more of a, with my parents, it was like, they were like, oh shit, we're having a kid. And then for him, they were like, oh shit, we're having a kid. But, right, we were both the mistakes, but I have two sisters in the middle and they were both planned. So there you have it. Of course, when I was 18, 17, 18, he's 3-4 years old.
Right.
And
right.
And the amount of times I'd just be hanging out with him and have the random intrusive thought of, drown him. And you're like, oh, no, I don't want to do that. But then that starts playing in a loop in your head. And that was kind of the hardest thing for me, was letting go of those thoughts. I think every human being has random, ridiculous thoughts like that.
Of course, yes.
But as you've probably had to talk about with people, part of the disorder of OCD, the D, is the fact that you become obsessed with them. In OCD. So I was avoiding my siblings. I was avoiding my mom because I used to have thoughts. I talk about this in the stand-up, but like thoughts of my mom would walk by in her robe and I'd be like, grab her tits, and you're like, I'm not gonna do that. But then you think it, and then you can't unthink it, and now you're just dealing with these thoughts all day. So yeah, I was 18 years old, and I just started I was waking up and into a panic attack. And I would spend all day in these panic attacks, and just, eventually I folded. It wasn't like I should do something about this. Eventually it was, I'm giving in. If I'm crazy now, then I'm crazy. Fuck it. I can't live like this anymore. I can't live hiding this. And and no, I'm not crazy, but you know what I mean? It was, I imagine that's a lot of people with OCD story.
At that point, do you turn to therapy? Do you tell someone about it? Where does it go when you hit that moment?
Well, the first thing I did growing up in the South, the first place I turned was religion.
Oh, well, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So I went I was 18. Oh, here's another little, little piece of information. I had also dropped out of high school and hadn't told anyone. Right.
Okay.
So, because that's another thing. I was a terrible student, but because I couldn't sit in class and concentrate anymore. You know what I
Sure.
mean? Like for my last year of high school, I was just I was absent. I was skipping class every day. I was skipping school every day. I just had to be alone a lot because I was trying to figure out what was wrong with me. And I didn't turn to drugs. I think a lot of people do turn to substances. I couldn't do any substance
Yeah.
anymore. Like weed, marijuana. All my friends were potheads. Uh, it only made it worse for me. I don't know how it is in general for people with OCD, but weed makes it worse for me.
Sure.
Still to this day, I don't really smoke a bunch of weed because, it can only arm my obsessive compulsive thoughts with a battering ram. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No one wants that. So,
Yeah. And like, psychedelics and things like that. I know now I've heard, in fact, that was a question I was going to have for you.
Sure.
I've heard they help with OCD, psychedelics.
A lot of research going into that area right now to see A, if it does, B, what's the right dosage, and C, what's the right timing for something. So,
Right.
Anecdotally, you'll hear some people say that it has helped them, but I've also seen people who use something once and they report the skyrocket effect of just the panic and anxiety inducing aspect of it. So we don't have enough good stuff to say about making a very general claim yet on where it goes.
That's good
But,
to know because, yeah,
lots of research.
that's good. I mean, yeah, well, it's funny when you say like it's like, so there's 8 guys sitting in the desert somewhere, like, all right,
Exactly.
man, what do we got?
Peyote day.
Let's see.
Yeah.
But yeah, like in the 90s, there definitely was unchecked, unregulated LSD and shrooms and
yeah.
yeah. So whenever I tried that stuff, as long as I was with the right people, I was fine. But if I was left alone for a second, it was terrifying. But yeah, I turned to religion first. I vividly remember this. I went to church by myself on a Sunday, and I was just sort of like, I wasn't raised religious. My parents are not religious, but the South is religious.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Louisiana specifically, where I grew up. And I went to church and I sat there and I remember just sort of like being, kind of in and out of everything because I'm still in my head, and then the ceremony's over and I'm leaving the church and there's a line to leave. And as we're leaving, there's the priest and he's greeting everyone on the way out. And he's going, "Thank you for coming. God bless." And he's, "Thank you for coming. God bless." And then to me, when I get up to him, he goes, "Stay sane." And well, exactly.
Oh, gosh.
Of all the things to hear, right?
Yeah.
And I was in shock almost, and I went out to my mom's van. I was driving because I was taking a van, and sat there and just bawled my eyes out for like I don't even know how long, but I was convinced I'm going to be okay. The priest, why would he say that of all things? And I went home that day and just came completely clean, just everything. Like went to my parents, sat them down, in tears, told them everything I'd been experiencing for a while at that point. Told them I dropped out of school. Was just convinced. I was like, let whatever happens, happen. And they reacted like parents. They were very concerned and very, it's going to be okay. And by Wednesday, I started seeing a therapist.
Wow.
So I was convinced it was religion. And here's the fun part. I went back the very next week and this time sat closer, to the stage, I'd say, and like was an active participant and everything. Because now I was religious technically. And afterwards, it's the same priest, longer line, and I'm in line to greet him on the way out. And as I'm walking up, I hear him, "Thank you for coming, God bless. Thank you for coming, God bless." And then to someone else, he goes, "Stay sane." And I witnessed that, and I kind of like take a step back, step into a pew out of line, and I watch it for a little bit. And he's, "Thank you for coming, God bless. Thank you for coming, God bless. Stay sane." I'm like, okay. And then I get in line, and I hear him say it to a couple people in front of me, "Stay sane." And then he said it to a couple people, "Stay sane." And then to me, I just get a plain, "Thank you for coming, God bless." So I realized, oh, that's just the third thing he said. It was like a pattern. It was, thank you for coming, God bless, thank you for coming, God bless. Stay sane. I went back out to my parents, my mom's van again, and sat in it and bawled again, but for different reasons. Because this was more of a, oh, it wasn't religion, it wasn't God. You know, I took the steps to help myself. It doesn't matter how I got here.
Yeah.
And if there is a God, it was God telling me, oh, this is on you, not them. Don't give those assholes the credit.
Exactly.
You
Yeah,
did it.
right.
You did the steps. And, you know,
Yeah.
and I've been seeing a therapist since. So therapy ultimately is what shook me out. I mean, you know, you're a doctor. I'm sure you maybe even had this moment. For someone who doesn't know what's wrong with them, not only hearing a licensed professional tell you what it is, but also tell you in a way where they're like, oh yeah, we got a whole book on it.
Mhm.
You're like, oh, that relief and that feeling of like, oh, okay, this is somewhat normal and I'm not alone.
Yeah.
Woo! That's a relief.
I use that very line in therapy all the time. Said, you know, we have books on this, just so you're aware. You're not. We didn't write it waiting for you. You know, we wrote it because we've seen it. Yeah.
We're not going to lock you up. We're going to set you free.
Right. I like what you said too about the serial killer concept of things, because even in a lot of serial killer movies, there's a point where they're walking past something and it's not at a 90-degree angle, and they step back. They adjust it a little bit and then they move on, almost making like definitely traits of OCD in every serial killer or something. You know, they almost reinforce that in a lot of movies that are out there.
Right. And then you have TV shows like, you know, in all respect to Tony Shalhoub, but like, you know, TV shows like Monk.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. I say this to everyone. If I showed you my apartment right now, it's a goddamn mess. I don't give a shit about 90-degree angles, color coordination. I've never been that guy.
Yeah.
I've never been that OCD, you know, everything needs to be neat and tidy and coordinated and at any sort of angle guy. That's never been a thing with me. If I wash my hands 15 times in a row, I think I've said this on stage, it has nothing to do with germs. Right. It has everything to do with preventing a nuclear apocalypse. You know, it's
exactly.
like,
yes.
It's that sort of thing. Because that's a big thing for me. It's preventative thinking. Is the whole idea of like my actions and whether or not I do them on a daily basis dictate the outcome of everyone's lives. And like that's outside of this for me. So like anytime anyone finds out I have OCD, the very first thing they want to do is ask me those questions. Ask me, you know, or, and I've said this before too, I hate when people use it as a verb, or like you meet someone who's like, oh, that's so OCD. I'm so OCD. And I'm like, no, you're not. Because if you were, I'd never know. That's the thing. You know, that's why shows like Monk would piss me off. Because I'm like, dude, if he were this OCD, he'd spend more time hiding it than he would investigating crimes.
Yeah.
Like that's, I guess, the thing that a lot of people don't understand. Like another thing. Like I talk about it in stand up. People are like, "Oh, I didn't know you were OCD." I'm like, "Yeah, no shit. You never." Like, that's kind of the thing. Like, I mean, in my experience, the amount of energy I used to put into hiding the fact that I had OCD, I'd be ashamed if you knew. Just based on, man, I thought I really covered it up well. You know, and that was when I told my parents. They were very surprised when I came back and it was like the doctor said, he said it's OCD from a therapist. They were like, "What?" And I'm like, "I know, but you know, you just wouldn't think."
Or what I hear a lot from people with OCD too is the moment they say I have it, people say, "Oh, I have a little of that too." I get that all the time when I tell people what I do, and you know, I've often said OCD is one of those conditions where even people think having a little bit of it wouldn't be so bad. I heard during COVID, it'd be great if I just had a little OCD or something like that, and I thought, wow, you really don't know what it is at all, because I don't know anybody even with OCD who would wish it on their worst enemy because of how absolutely torturous it is. Yeah.
Oh man, if I could weaponize it, and like, oh my God, you know what I mean? Yeah, like I wouldn't. Sometimes you wish, but I'd love to you to have this for a day,
Yeah.
just for one day, and understand that that's every day of my life. Sometimes the most difficult thing to do is leave the apartment, not because I'm depressed or because it's shitty weather, because walking through a doorway and not timing it out perfectly with a certain series of thoughts, that can take a fucking hour.
Sure.
Not so much anymore, but like growing up, yeah. I mean, and still to this day, the thing I've talked about with people, does it go away? No. It's the way your brain is wired.
Right.
You just simply get better at living with it. That's all it is. And, is it beneficial? Look, I think you can find a way to find the bright side in anything, right? I have learned over the years, and I'm in my 40s now, but I've learned over the years, and we're talking, since I was diagnosed and since I was almost 30 years of, seeing a therapist and, dealing with it, I've learned to find the positives in OCD. It's probably why I do stand-up, it's probably why I act and perform, because, I've learned to take the tics and the things that I notice that I know no one else is paying attention to, and I write about them, and I know that's beneficial. And I heard someone say this once, and I really like this, but things like OCD, mental ailments like that, are also just the side effects of a creative mind working against you. It's also what it is. It's like, my imagination is probably wilder than most people's because of it. And, I look at that as a positive. You just got to learn to refocus those attributes,
Yeah, you live in a very what-if world. Your brain says
Big
you
time.
have to reply to it, though, with a compulsion, or else that thing's going to come true. Right?
Yes, big time, man.
Yeah.
And like that's the part that's the hard part, I think, for anybody going through it now, or anyone in the early realizations of it. Yeah, that to me was the thing that, and I mean, still to this day, sometimes, especially when like the world's in such a tumultuous place as it is now.
Is it? I didn't notice. Oh,
we don't in Wisconsin. We're just up here living. Yeah. But you start to it starts to awaken some of those old feelings. But
sure,
it's not you. Anyone listening, you didn't do it,
right?
Because you didn't shower at a certain time, or walk through a sliding glass door at a certain angle, or because you chose to wear a certain shirt that years ago you put a weird curse on because you were wearing the shirt the day something shitty happened. It's not that shirt. It's not the shirt. Wearing the shirt. You like the shirt, wear it.
Exactly. Yeah. OCD is very good at attaching a meaning to something. That is for sure.
Oh my God. Yeah. It's
And even the meaning to a point of, what if it's not OCD? And we have a couple of clips actually I wanted to run, but there's a point too where you compare in the first clip we'll show OCD to schizophrenia or psychosis.
A lot of people are under the impression that these past 2 years have been like a dream come true for those of us with OCD, because we get to wash our hands a lot. Do you think we like washing our hands? Is that what you think? Do you think people like succumbing to their mental illness? Is that what you think? Do you think schizophrenics are like, oh boy, the voices are back. Can't wait to hear what they're up to. Can't wait to hear what they got planned for me. I think people project their weak bullshit onto the mentally ill because they're afraid to admit that they're mentally ill themselves.
Yeah.
I love that. And actually, I love even a little bit more after that. You say, I think at best we're all a little bit mentally under the weather, which I think is just a classically awesome line. I have to say, it's absolutely wonderful. So it's one of my favorite things ever.
Because you get these guys now who, especially now, because I talk about it still a lot on stage, and you'll get these people who are just like, why is everybody got to talk about being mentally ill? I'm fine. And you're like, yeah, you look fine.
Right.
You seem totally adjusted and chill. That's why you're shouting at me. But
Yeah, and it's fun because I've gotten to speak to a lot of comedians. I've done interviews with Howie Mandel, Maria Bamford,
Oh yeah.
Mark Summers, and you, and you know, I love the fact that you all bring some humor to it, because I try to do that in therapy as well. I mean, I say, I really, to the people I work with, I really like you, but I don't like your OCD at all, and I'm going to be pretty relentless to it. And one of the
Right.
ways is to just be able to, take the Mickey out of it, right? Pull the rug out from under it, maybe even tease it a bit and just say, all right, if you're true, then sure, go ahead. Just make that thing happen. Then let's just see it. Just one time, prove to me that it's true. Has OCD ever shown you the truth, or is it just more of a, well, next time I'll get you maybe or something?
I mean, yeah, that's a fantastic point, man. I mean, because like letting the times where you do let go, or when you are forced to let go.
Yeah.
When boarding a flight and you don't have enough time to go through your compulsions.
Sure, getting in and out of the plane, even, right, and entering it the right way.
Right.
Yeah,
and you just have to just do it, and you just do it, and you're just on the flight, and it'll be you'll in your head you're screaming, in your head you're like, fuck, but you on the surface you're calm and doing the thing, and then the plane lands, and you're fine, and you're like, oh, there you go, and you remember that, I don't know how it is for other people, but like those were big moments for me of just like remembering, oh yeah, the time I didn't do the thing and it was fine. And still to this day, those are huge. And like you said, I mean, in that clip, like, it can't, and I think I'm sure a lot of your patients deal with this too. It doesn't, I dealt with a consistent fear that it was going to mutate or evolve.
Oh, sure, sure.
You know what I mean? Like that it was not going to stop at OCD, that it was going to be schizophrenia, that it was going to be, I was terrified of that for 15 years, and then I had that was like a good month or two of therapy of just like, that was the thing, and then I remember, and I think, I don't know if you've probably had this conversation too. I stopped doing the therapy for a while, for like years. I stopped and was fine. And then I sort of, I don't know if I call it a relapse necessarily, but I think it fits. I started just like succumbing to a lot of these thoughts again. And I found myself getting back into really shitty patterns and really unhealthy, I just kind of fell back into it and started having like, bad anxiety again and really, really struggling with it. And I went back to therapy, different therapist this time. And, I think for some people, there's a shame or a fear of that, of like,
oh, yeah.
And I could say, having been through it, it's okay. You know what I mean? Like, that's what my therapist now taught me. And it's a beautiful, beautiful 2-sentence savior for me is, it's okay. Like when you're having these anxiety attacks, when you're deep in the throes, I call it an OCD wormhole. I still experience those sometimes.
I like that.
When you're just like, oh, here I am. And you catch yourself in the middle of it. You're like, man, I am in one right now.
Yeah.
And that's okay. And you just say to yourself, that's okay. It's okay to feel this way. It's okay to be freaked out. It's okay to be in this wormhole right now. You have a condition. Yep. It's okay. And immediately, like right now, as I'm saying it, just as an example, you start to feel that calm come over you, and like acceptance, because I think that's the biggest part of it, is accepting it. People want to cure it. It's not possible.
No.
Yet the acceptance is the cure.
Yeah, I say to people, I've treated OCD for 25 years, so
wow.
I cannot do anything anymore without intrusive thoughts. Sean, if you and I were on a staircase right now, I'd think about throwing you down the stairs.
Hell yeah.
Right? Yeah. I would, right? Because I've treated so many people who are afraid of that I can't take stairs anymore without contemplating the death of everybody on the staircase with me. Sure. But I just go, whatever. and I walk down the stairs. So absolutely, that is a big piece. And I also really appreciate what you said, that you did therapy, it ebbs and it flows. You kind of get this up and down. Damn you, OCD, for not just staying down after therapy, but it rises up. But we see that all the time. Someone who's been sober for 20 years and then they have a drink, right? There are things that catch us, and that is the normal aspect of the way these work. And that's what's beautiful about therapy, because you can work on a maintenance therapy for the rest of your life. Even if you want to see your therapist a couple times a year just to check in or something, that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that whatsoever.
100%. And also, like, here's the beauty of, two things. One, I mean, this is morbid, but it's fun, I think. I know if I start having like random intrusive thoughts about murdering someone, I go, oh, I must care about this person.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, very much. Yeah.
I must really care about this person because I'm terrified of slicing them open for no reason. And also, and I mean, we all, humans are imperfect. Every human being has got something wrong, something negative, something they're hiding, something they're embarrassed about. It's also wonderful to have a name for yours, for mine. You know what I mean? Like, and it's a reminder of, like, whenever things are going terribly in my life, OCD will flare up, and it's a moment of like you check in with yourself, and you're sort of like, it's okay. This is why. I know why. And whenever things are going amazingly in my life, and you're convinced you don't deserve any of it, because I know that there's a lot that's not even OCD. That's just people in general. I also have to remind myself, but yeah, I also live with this thing. And like, I know its name. I know what it is. I know how it works now. I understand when it really wants to, really when it's having to go at me and when it's not. And it's kind of comforting in a weird sort of dark, sort of, macabre way of just like, oh, I know what my thing is. And I'm grateful that I at least can live with it. Because, I know there's a spectrum for everything. And I know, I don't know where I fall on the spectrum. I'd say somewhere in the middle. But like, I know some people have it far worse than me. And I know some people have it not as bad. But like, I know how to deal with mine. And,
How did comedy come into that, and the decision to really utilize the OCD in your comedy and be so open about it?
I mean, I think every comedian will say that you become funny as a defense mechanism at some point in your life early, right? Well, I mean, for me, but I think that's a lot of comedians as well. But for me specifically, like, it was a defense mechanism, and not necessarily always to defend myself physically or mentally from other people. It was sometimes the only way I could integrate myself into social situations, or the only way I could make friends. It was like, I always knew how to make a buffoon out of myself and get people to laugh. Right. And especially when it came to, early on dealing with, I knew that it was an easy way in social situations to sort of shock myself out of the thoughts, to sort of, before I knew what it was, before I understood why I had to have these compulsions, and why I had to always think the darkest, most fucked up thing about someone standing next to me that I knew or didn't know. Humor, making the people laugh. That was a quick antidote for, okay, I'm okay. I'm here. I'm fine. If I were crazy, I probably couldn't, have said that thing that everyone's laughing at,
Sure.
And then also, yes, when I think anyone with OCD or any mental ailment, you grow up a loner, I certainly was. I had friends, of course, but I was, I spent a lot of time by myself. I was very awkward, very shy. People have a really hard time believing that. I was an insane. I still am. I'm still shy. You just, not all the time. I never had a problem with public speaking, for example, like being in front of people, talking in large groups. That, even in the earliest stages before I was ever a performer, was never an issue for me. But having one-on-one conversations could be terrifying.
Sure.
Terrifying for me. Still to this day, I could, dating is a thing that I've never really actively looked forward to doing, because of just like all the little intimate one-on-one moments. But, you get through it. And yeah, humor just came about in that way where it was like, okay, it was how I could make myself laugh, how I could make friends, how I could make myself feel okay and not crazy. And then also, if anyone was, you get bullied as a kid by himself, when you're a kid, and that's just part of life. And it was an easy way too to thwart that, or to like make it seem like it wasn't that big of a deal, both for the other people watching you get your ass kicked and yourself. So like, so it's and then, once I started doing stand up, my big thing for me with comedy is originality. That's my big thing. Is like I want to speak from a place no one else has spoken from. So like, I don't do a lot of a ton of observational. I don't, if I see more than two other comics talk about a topic, usually I won't touch it. I'm like, they got it.
Okay.
Right. And I started to realize, I've been doing stand up for 20, I don't know how long now. Oh shit. Almost 24 years. Wow. That's wild. And,
Congrats.
yeah, thank you. And, early on I was like, man, I have this angle that I don't know if anyone else has or speaks on. And I've seen quite a few other comedians talk about OCD at this point, but like, I was just like, look, this is me. This is part of who I am. It's my day to day. It's not just something I experience once a year. It's not like an event that happens where I'm like, oh, cool, the OCD of things happen and I can't wait to talk about. It's like, no, this is every single day of my life. It's my perspective.
Yeah.
And so I put a name on it and just started talking about it. And I tell you what, man, the amount of people, it's not constant, because I know a lot of people who are struggling with it don't want to identify themselves, don't want to actively talk about it. Maybe their way of dealing with it is keeping it a lid on it. And if that's the case, great. That's your way. I got zero beef with that. But I also have had quite a few people come up to me afterwards or reach out to me online and just be like, hey, thank you.
Yeah.
Like, thank you big time. I had parents in Cincinnati come up to me after a show, and the mom was like teary eyed, and I remember being like, "Oh fuck, what did I say?"
Oh yeah,
It's
sure.
like, that could happen. And they come over, and she was just like, our kid is going through this right now, and it's really, really hard, and it's really hard watching them deal with it. And I kind of, we'd never heard anyone talk about it like that before. And oh my God, it makes me feel so much better that, and it was, it was a very like relieving moment. And then the next year, a year later, I was back in Cincinnati doing the same club, and they brought their kid.
Oh, wow.
Right. And I got to like meet them and talk and, and just sort of be like, hey, keep your chin up. It's all good. Like, you're good. It's fine. And they seemed pretty adjusted by that point. They'd been seeing a therapist, and like, I think they're on meds. We talked about the meds, and I was like, great. That was never the thing for me. My first therapist prescribed me the medication, and I did it for a little while, but I didn't. The idea of the day when I couldn't access it, or maybe that bothered me too much. It was this constant underlying thing with me where I was like, but what if thinking, what if there comes a day where they don't have my prescription filled, or I'm stranded at sea, or I don't want to be just reliant on this. And I talked to my doctor or my therapist at the time about it, and they're like, sure, if you want to go that route, happy to. This is, let's take you off. And I haven't been on it since. So like, and if medication is the way for some people, absolutely do that. Absolutely jump on board, please. Anything. There's nothing wrong with that. Because I was being unrealistic about it. You know what I mean? Like, you will always have access to the meds, but I just chose to not walk that path. And
absolutely. I mean, the two really suggested treatments are exposure and response prevention therapy, or that plus medication. So you could take the path. You did the ERP route, it sounds like. So that's great.
Yeah.
Do you remember like one of the first times having to face one of those fears that you had and not doing a compulsion and really testing out to see what would actually happen?
I mean, to be honest with you, that's sort of happens still to this day regularly with me.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like slaying my demons, like
Mhm.
just, I kind of take pleasure in it, to be honest. Like at this point in my life, I kind of take pleasure in it.
Mhm.
Cause it can be like, whoo, no, you know what I mean? Like, like I do it. It could be like a cathartic is the best way to describe it, of just like putting it down, and look, I can honestly say this too. I've also had timing. I've also experienced versions of the opposite, but it's never done any harm, of like not doing a tick or not giving into a compulsion. And the thing you're kind of worried about does happen, but it's not.
Oh yeah,
it's clear it's never because of you, and it's also never that big of a deal.
right. It's never as bad as OCD says it's going to be.
Absolutely not even close. And that's rare. But I've had far more experience in the opposite way. Like, we're talking 100 versus one time, versus hundreds of times, really, where you go, no, I'm not. Because here's what I do. I ask myself, what do I want right now? Do I want to keep doing this? Or do I want to get out of the fucking car and go to the restaurant and meet my friends? What do I want to do right now?
There you go.
And it's always 100% of the time, I want to stop this thing and just go. And it's a relief. It's a cathartic relief when you're just like, yeah, it's fine, man. And you'll experience this burst of, I don't know, endorphins maybe, or just like this sort of like, I'm good.
Mhm.
I'm good. And you walk in with your chest puffed out and a pep in your step, and people notice, and it could be a little. I'm bashful in that way, where I don't want to be like, guys, I just killed another OCD tech, because they regenerate. They regenerate, and they'll find different ways to get your attention again. But like, it's I'd say all the time, and I think it's, like I said, it's become enjoyable.
Yeah.
In a way, because it feels like an accomplishment, because it is, because
awesome.
it is. Like you brought up alcoholics earlier. It's like holding an open beer in your hand and going, nah. I'm throwing it away.
Mm-hmm.
It's a moment of like, I didn't take a sip. I did not take a sip of that compulsion.
Right.
I tossed it.
Celebrate the wins. Yeah, that's awesome.
100%.
That's great.
Yeah.
I really love that, and I love that as in my role, helping people do that every day is just a win for me too. So it's really cool.
That's awesome. That's got to be. Now I got to ask: do you experience? Please. Are you obsessive compulsive yourself?
No, I am not. But the greatest compliment I ever received was, "I can't believe you don't have OCD because you think like you do."
that's such a like. That is a. I see your point. That's also like a simultaneous like compliment and like, because what made you, was it a experience with someone in your life that made you go, oh, I want to tackle this?
No, I'll give you the amazingly honest answer. On paper, I'm a massive failure, Sean. I'm just going to lead it off with that. It is this is an absolutely true story. I use this in therapy because I went to this really small college. I'll make this quick, but I applied to like some of the best graduate programs in the country because they said, you're our best student here at this little school. And I thought, okay. And I got rejected summarily from every one of them right off the bat. Not even an interview. It was terrible. And so I applied to some master's programs. I got into one. I applied then to some PhD programs, got in. Then I applied to internships. I applied to 15. I got into one. So now I'm like only 6 acceptances out of 57 jobs.
Wow.
Or schools. So I don't look good on paper. Then I apply to 40 graduate programs and postdocs, and I get 1 offer out of it. So I'm 8 for 97. But it was at the St. Louis Behavioral Medicine Institute and their anxiety disorder program. And I found my thing. Like, I knew within a week and a half of being there that was what I was going to do. And now it's fun because those places that rejected me invite me back to be keynote speakers at all of their things. It's really wonderful.
You fail upwards,
Like, that's
like,
it. Mm-hmm.
But also, like, that's to me, that's a beautiful example. I mean, I can 1000% identify with that, and because similar in my world, like all the times you get told no,
Oh, sure.
like currently right now, like I'd sort of, I'm not gonna say walked away from acting, because stand up comedy is my main, I've been doing that for years, and I've got a career and I tour and I make my living off of that. But I got to a point with acting where it was just like you get told no a lot, and I was getting auditions that I didn't want to be these roles.
Sure.
But you read for them anyway and eventually it was just like, man, I have a certain look that you've seen already. You know what I mean? Like I get compared to a lot of already successful guys and just physically. So like I sort of got to this point where I was like, I stand up's my thing, and acting is just something I don't think about, or maybe it's not going to happen. And then I got this audition, and it ended up being for the show I'm on now, and it ended up being the right role. So it's like you never know, but you kept applying, and the one that accepted you, like you said, the moment you were in there, it was like, aha.
Yeah, it was.
Aha.
It was.
And that's awesome to me. That's better. That to me is a more amazing story than I got into all of them. And, like, what about OCD? And they're like, well, you're Dr. Patrick. I'm calling you doctor already because you're so brilliant and you got into all these medical programs.
Yeah.
Why not give OCD a try? I was like, no, it almost like it found you.
Yeah. And I had a great mentor who I'm still friends with to this day. And for the last 25 years, it's what I've done. And I'm still excited about it every day. And I love it. And I love doing this podcast and meeting people like you and just getting to talk about this, because if we can destigmatize this, that is so great. Right.
Well, I mean, yes. And destigmatize this and all of it, really. Because like the thing that, I'm sort of bothered by today, it seems like, just from a decade ago, there seems to be this sort of glorification of stupidity in this country, and this sort of like, turning away from the idea that no one chooses this. No, and I mean, OCD is mild. I'm talking all levels of illness. Like no one chooses it. It's not. It's so if you don't experience, if you have nothing wrong in some way, I think you're probably lying. I said in that stand-up clip, like
Sure.
I think everybody deals with something and mentally under the weather. But like this sort of idea that like, oh man, these crazy fuckers. You're like, yeah, but they didn't. Nobody chose that.
Right.
Everyone just was gifted it by, their parents' DNA. Like this sort of. It almost seems like people as a country we're starting to turn our backs a little bit on the mentally ill and the people with issues, and it's like, man, like that's bad. That's not. Society should never get to that point. It should all of it needs to be destigmatized. If you ask me, like. Start with OCD, then we can get to, bipolar disorder, then we can get to depression, anxiety. Anxiety is like OCD's best friend.
Oh, totally. Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I mean? Like, and like, I can say this. I don't experience depression as much, and I'm grateful for that. Of course I do. I think everyone does. For me though, anxiety, it's all anxiety. I'm way more. I have a key to anxiety's apartment. Let's just say that.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it is a key to mine, even though I keep not giving it a key.
Right.
I'm like, how do you keep a key to? How do you know where I live?
Damn it.
But like, the destigmatization. Why is that so hard to say?
It's a weird word. Even I said it. I was like, did I say that right?
Destigmatization. Yeah. It's hard to say, even harder to do.
Yeah. And
I think that's important.
OCD brings its other friends like guilt and shame and disgust along for the party in addition to anxiety too. So what a great show.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And they all can go all night long. They don't need sleep.
Right.
Yeah.
Before we go, there's one more clip I wanted to do actually.
Oh sure.
And I think it's really important because a lot of people can confuse superstition and OCD, and I make a joke. I've got a new product coming out next week called Block of Wood. Just carry it in your pocket, take it out when you need it, knock on it 3 times. Everything will be great. You won't have anything to worry about. You'll be fine. All will be well, But we hold on to these superstitions, and OCD feels in some ways like the most steroids in the world you could find. Like that would be in some ways what it would be like for some folks. So I like how you described it.
They don't have any stakes involved. Superstitions are about avoiding bad luck, saving yourself, something you can't do. Like, we can contrast and compare all day. If you're superstitious, you wouldn't want to walk under a ladder because that'll bring you bad luck. What does that even mean? That's life. And what are you so afraid of bad luck for? Bad luck brought us the blues. Everybody loves the fucking blues. Growing up with OCD, every time I made a sandwich, which was a lot, I had to kiss all 4 corners before I bit into it so that my grandfather would never die in a boating accident. You understand? And it worked. He's been dead for a quarter century, but it happened on dry fucking land. If you're superstitious, you wouldn't want to break a mirror because that'll bring you 7 years of bad luck. 7 years of bad luck? It sounds like the premise of a CBS sitcom that's only going to last 2 seasons anyway. So what are you afraid of? As a teenager, every Wednesday, I had to wear my shoes on the opposite feet until someone noticed. And then when they noticed, I would then have to pretend like I just noticed.
Yeah.
I love that. And I'm so glad you talk about that, because I think some people just think, well, just knock it off. They'll say to people with those, just stop doing it, right? And that's got to still get under your craw a little bit to this day when someone says, have you ever thought about not thinking that or not doing that at all or anything? Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, big time. I mean, that was, the big thing for me too was when I started going to therapy at first. As a kid, I'm like, I don't want people. My parents were very cool about it. They didn't openly tell anyone,
Mm-hmm.
But then, of course, one of my aunts found out that I was going to therapy, and she only found out because my cousin was being a little shit at the time, and she thought about sending him to therapy, but not because of any situation, anything he was experiencing, just because he was a bad kid. So she was like, maybe, that kind of thing. And of course, so then she would bring it up constantly.
Sure.
Constantly, in a very shitty, snideful way. And then, then that becomes a thing too, where it's like, why don't you just, and I start talking about, being open about having OCD in my personal life. And and you get those people who are just like, why don't you just not do it? And you're like, oh yeah, no, fuck me. I didn't think about that one.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're right. I should just stop doing it.
There you go.
Morons. I mean, so, yeah, you still get that, like, the beast wants to come out because, like, if that were the case, I would have stopped doing it. And it's the same thing with, like, I don't know how much I can't remember how much I talked about it on stage, but like, if you really look at like every superstition written out, you're like, oh, this seems familiar.
Yeah.
I do believe that. I do believe every superstition was created by someone in power who themselves had unchecked obsessive compulsive disorder, and we're like, if I have to deal with this shit, you all do,
Yeah, and, like the Spanish king, I think, with the lisp.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Just yeah.
But also noticed. Well, I noticed this too. I don't know if you've noticed this, but like, I do know there are people who are just flat out superstitious.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Sure.
And I'd like pick these people's brains. I'm like, do you really believe that? Do you really believe that if you spilled salt just now, if you don't throw some over your shoulder, do you really think your life is fucked? Like, really talk to me about this. And generally, I find people, no, they don't. But then sometimes, you're uncovering someone who does themselves have a mild, like, oh, okay, this.
Yeah.
I think we're more alike than you think.
Right.
And that's interesting too.
The other thing, and I'm excited to hear your opinion on this, because I get in my webinars at least once a week. Why does it have to feel so real? And my answer is, the jokey answer is, if it didn't, I wouldn't have a job. But it has to feel real, though, because you would not do a compulsion if it didn't feel real. And OCD lives on compulsions. It eats compulsions for breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Yep.
And so I'm wondering, as someone with OCD who's kind of broken through that, there's that day you have to face that thing and decide it's going to feel real, but I don't think it is. And when people come up after a show or something like that, you've talked a little bit about, but what's your go-to motivation for making sure that you don't fall for that it's going to be real statement?
I mean, to quote Spider-Man or one of the Spider-Mans from the multiverse, it's a leap of faith.
There you go.
Truly, the first couple times for me personally, it's like you just have to, because I think that, for me, the worst part of it all, if I really had to pinpoint, and I've thought about this so much over the years, but the worst part of OCD is that it's not real.
Yeah.
Despite how it feels.
Yeah.
Despite how in the throes of it you can be, even, and that's why, when I'm in an OCD, when I'm in a wormhole, like that's, in those moments what can break me out of it is like, but it also is the shittiest part. It's not real.
Yeah.
Deep down inside that you don't need to drink another glass of milk to prevent, another COVID outbreak. You don't need, your mom is going to be fine if you don't wear those socks. You know what I'm saying? Like whatever it is, but you still have to do it. And that part was the part I always go with the worst. But that also is what gives me the I guess strength or the mental fortitude to go no. Because here's the thing, and here's my jokey thing: if I ever found out that the way I brush my teeth can directly influence the stock market, then I'm a goddamn I have superpowers.
Yes, exactly.
And cool. You know what I mean? If an entire city's, the life of every citizen in the city is based on whether or not I wear a certain pair of pants, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow, I have powers.
Yeah.
But also, like I also find the more I talk about it, the less powerful it becomes.
Sure.
And I will say this: we still deal with those people. You will still, even at shows sometimes where I talk about like some of the more lewd thoughts I've had to wrestle with my whole life. And you'll still have those people who are just like, and you're like, great, that's fine. They're going to react that way. You react that way. I myself, the first time it hit me, a thought like that hit me was like, but it's just thought. They're only thoughts.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And saying them out loud there's nothing wrong with that. And I find helps immensely.
Well, I think this interview is going to help a lot of people immensely too. So thank you for everything you've said today, Sean. I really appreciate it.
Awesome. No, please. I'm honored that you guys reached out, and I'm glad we made it work because this has been very helpful for me, just hearing you talk about it more too.
Fantastic. Mm-hmm. Sean, where can people find you? Where should they go to look up your stuff and know what you're doing?
You can my website is seanpatton.com. I don't have any tour dates now because I'm filming for the next couple months, but I'm putting up some soon for this summer and later this year. Follow me on Instagram at mrseanpatton.com. Watch English Teacher on FX. Season 1's up now. It's on FX, Hulu, and Disney Plus now. Season 1's up now, and we're filming season 2 right now as we speak. So that'll be out later this year. And amazing. I'm everywhere.
Well, I will see you on the road this summer. I'm going to find a show, and I will come say hi after.
I'll be back. I'll be back in Wisconsin. The Midwest is my favorite part of the country to tour in, so I'll be back.
Awesome. That sounds great. Well, thank you, Sean, for being with us today and helping people to put a face to OCD and realize that it's not this sentence, right? It's not a shackle. You are out there, you're in the world, you're talking about it, you're successful, you're doing all of the things, and you have OCD. And that's the message we continuously want to show people, that you can live with OCD. It doesn't have to be the driver. You can live with it.
Yeah, and take the thing I tell anyone who has it. There is a bright side to it. And to some people it's glaringly obvious. You just got to take those steps to make it use it. It's never going away, and that's okay. Use it. There are ways to use it to your advantage. I firmly believe that, and I'm proof of it. So you'll find ways it gets better, and you get better at it. You know.
Thank you. And thank all of you for watching today on the Get to Know OCD podcast. It was been great to speak to Sean Patton today. Thank you so much, Sean. And for those of you looking for help for OCD or related conditions, go to NOCD.com. That's NOCD.com, where we have therapists waiting who are trained in diagnosing and treating obsessive compulsive disorder and related conditions. We also do our NOCD 411 sessions. If you have questions about what OCD is, but maybe aren't ready for therapy yet, or a family member or friend of someone who's looking into information about OCD, we could provide that as well. And if you like the Get to Know OCD podcast, you can subscribe on our NOCD YouTube channel. We'll see you again in the future. Thanks for being here today.